Taiwan Business Council. And some of you probably heard his speech already, but he has a very heavy accent. That's because he came from Scotland. He's not the native American. In 1987, he came all the way from Scotland. In 1991, he finished, got a degree in the Denison University in Ohio. In 1993, and he worked for the Center for Policy, Federal Policy Association. And then, second year, in 1994, he joined the U.S. ROC Business Council at that time. And in 1998, he was promoted as the vice president of that organization. And in year 2000, he was elected as the president of U.S. ROC at the time. The following year is so important. It's in 2001. The name of the U.S. ROC changed to U.S. Taiwan Business Council. So it's under our keynote speaker's presidency administration. And one good news for you, in the same year 2001, we also invite our keynote speaker, President Tsai, first come to United States, and this organization was the first organization to receive her in the United States. That's in 2001. And back into 2010, our keynote speaker actually was our keynote speaker that year, and same thing happened in this hotel. And 2020, of course, this year he is our keynote speaker. Just last month, while the Black Hawk crashed in Taiwan, he delivered a very touching statement, remarks to commemorate the General Sen for passing away in a helicopter crash. So we are so honored to have him, and as I said, he's same as like all of us. He actually is the first immigration, like most of us here tonight. But he is so dedicated to the Taiwan's military armed sales and also the security circle. So without further ado, I would like to ask you to join me at a warm welcome to our keynote speaker, Rupert Hammond-Chambers.
Well, I hope you've all got your alcohol. I have tea, so please excuse me for not joining the red wine. But John, thank you to you and to the leadership of the Taiwan Chamber of Commerce for the Bay Area. It is truly an honor to come back and speak with you all again after what has been, it certainly feels like 10 very fast years since I last had this opportunity to come and spend some time with you all. I really want to congratulate the leadership of the organization as somebody who also is responsible for running a non-profit. It is hard work running a non-profit. It's a little easier when the economy is strong, but economies are cyclical and they have rough times too. So keeping an organization as vibrant as this, with a healthy membership that's engaged and willing to promote the interests of the organization, is a credit to the leadership of the people who work for the organization and are prepared to give their personal time to organize events like this and to chart a course for the organization to ensure its relevancy. So I wish to congratulate you. These are turbulent times in US and China relations, for sure. I do not want to, nor have I ever talked about US-Taiwan relations in the context of Taiwan, thank you very much, in the context of Taiwan as a subset of China. I believe that the United States, indeed all countries in the world, should treat Taiwan with the same dignity that they treat any other country in the world. That it's due a relationship, it's due a relationship that is equal to the stature of Taiwan, a fully functioning country with sovereignty, with its own government and democracy, with its own armed forces, and with a people that care deeply for its well-being and for its people. So we have a time, fortunately, over the past 3 years where I feel that the United States has finally woken up and started to take seriously the challenge represented by Communist China. And we've seen significant adjustments in US-China relations as a consequence. Yes, tensions have risen. That creates anxiety, for sure it does. And for those of us old enough to remember the Cold War, we remember what it's like for the two primary powers to look at each other with suspicion and with caution, and to not really be friends, but certainly to engage. It does create anxiety, but it was time, it was necessary. We had to address the predatory behavior of China in a way that allows the United States and its critical friends and allies to feel as if they have an opportunity to represent their interests. And for me, there is no friend of the United States more important in the Asia-Pacific region than Taiwan. So these are turbulent times. I'd like to start, I think, with the Taiwan election. As you all certainly know, Tsai Ing-wen's victory was quite comfortable, both for herself personally, and I also think surprisingly for the Li Fai-yuan. Certainly, I thought the Li Fai-yuan might even be a hung parliament with the smaller parties actually being the difference between who was in charge and who wasn't in charge. But the DPP did very well, and it's a testament to the leadership of Tsai Ing-wen, and I think also, candidly, some challenges that the Kuomintang have moving forward over their legacy relationship with China, and some of the difficulties that the Kuomintang is having in identifying with younger citizens on the island. And that's an issue that they will have to address, I think, in the longer term, if they're to be a viable and strong opposition party through Tsai's second term, and to challenge the DPP in the presidential election that will take place in 4 years. The view in Washington, D.C. is very favorable for Tsai Ing-wen. She has many friends. She has friends in this room, I know. She has many friends in Washington. She is trusted, she is responsible, she's extremely smart, and she is careful in the way in which she manages her relationship with China, which is appreciated in Washington. Now, Washington certainly does not expect Taiwan to not represent its interests. So when Tsai has taken a different course from Ma Ying-jeou and the Kuomintang, it has been, if not celebrated, certainly supported in Washington, D.C. as a reasonable response to China's attitude towards Taiwan. And she's supported in that. And we certainly expect Tsai Ing-wen to continue to chart the same course with China over the next 4 years. How China will behave vis-a-vis Taiwan, I think we can talk a little bit more about in a couple of minutes. There is continuity, almost certainly, in US-China relations, but it will remain fraught with tension. Even though the Phase 1 trade deal has been addressed, there's no indication at all that tensions between the United States and China are going to come down in any meaningful way. I think that's important for this community, for the business people that are represented in this room. I think for some time, actually most of the time, certainly within the supply chain anyway, geostrategic shifts have not really been the concern of supply chain companies. But I feel that the last couple of years and the rise in tensions has been a bit of a wake-up call for the supply chain over the significance of these tensions and what they mean for the companies that are operating in the supply chain. And those tensions are going to remain. And I think for leaders of companies in the supply chain, there's going to need to be some adjustment. I'll give you an example. Taiwan Semiconductor, obviously is a big company. I like to refer to it as the most important technology company in the world. Very few people have ever heard of, right? But it is, it's very important. They have started to play more of a proactive role in public policy, government relations. They've hired a senior person to work out of Washington, D.C. These sorts of developments for the Taiwan business community out of Taiwan, I think we're going to continue to see more of that. It is a healthy development. The closer the US and Taiwan can cooperate on issues that impact us both in a mutual way, I think the better we will be. The DPP government, well, we know that Su Zhenjiang will remain as premier. They've been careful in just saying that he will remain premier. I think it's likely he will be there for another year, through the Lunar New Year next year. But his cabinet will almost certainly be turned over in May, and May 20th during the inauguration. We're going to see a significant turnover of people, but the premier will remain the same, I feel. And we will see some new blood. I think out of the Li Faiyuan, we have former legislators like Bi Kim Xiao, who represented Hualien, who was not re-elected. I think she was quite relieved, actually. You know her, she's really terrific. She was just in Washington, actually, with William Lai this past week on his trip. But I think perhaps we might expect her as the new ambassador here in Washington, D.C., or maybe even foreign minister if the president moves Joseph Wu back into the presidential office. But there Wang Tingyu, Lo Jichang, Bi Kim Xiao, there are some really, really capable leaders in the legislature. I think we're going to see over the next 4 years move into the cabinet. And again, very good for US-Taiwan relations. They have excellent relationships here in the States, and of course personal relationships, both in our private lives, in our business lives, and in government, are hugely important in communication and close coordination. Decoupling. So when we look at the issue of decoupling in US-Taiwan relations, the US is watching with some interest what is happening with the investment flows that are coming, that are not being wholly focused on China now, and we're seeing an acceleration of investment into Taiwan. It's a healthy development, and we certainly see the GDP numbers for last year. I think 0.5, 0.6 plus on GDP as a consequence of these investment flows. It's a healthy thing. However, it does create some challenges for President Tsai that she's going to have to deal with over the next 4 years. And we will see as we track US-Taiwan relations. The first is a parochial issue for her on the island. Land, water, power, and people. If there is a significant uptick in investment in Taiwan, as there is, these issues are already challenges. How is Taiwan going to deal with accelerated investment flows into the island on those specific areas? The other area is an area that's extremely important to Mr. Trump, one he ran on when he ran for re-election, and one he will, I believe, continue to focus in on, and that's trade balances. So as the decoupling continues and more investment flows into Taiwan, the trade imbalance between Taiwan and the United States is going to go up. How President Tsai handles that is going to be important, because she's going to want to keep Taiwan in a good place with US-Taiwan relations. And candidly, at the moment, it's never been better. I'm not just saying that. My job was used to say that, but it didn't mean anything. It has never been better. It is deeply substantive at the moment. So she's going to want to keep that. And that's going to require the island to make some decisions. An excellent example is the island will almost certainly buy more gas, liquid natural gas from the United States. That number will go up significantly to try and keep the trade balance, if not completely balanced, critically not crossing the $20 billion threshold. So I think overall, we're going to see President Tsai focus 2 areas over the next 4 years. For the US relationship, and what I want to make an appeal to you all on, I think she is going to focus in the US relationship. Number 1 item will be a bilateral trade agreement between the United States and Taiwan. That is going to be the top focus for her administration, how to secure that. And the second issue, I think, even though the PRC places a lot of pressure on Taiwan's international space, I think Taiwan will focus significantly on the big relationships that matter most to it. America, Japan, Australia, the European Union, and the British, I think, will all be primary focuses of Taiwan foreign policy. Trump administration policy towards Taiwan, as I mentioned, has never been better. And I want to be clear about what I mean about that. Because it's not just rhetorically saying that. What does it mean? Yes, it means selling weapons, right? It means that. It means selling fighters after saying no for 15 years. That's important. It means when President Tsai visits the United States, that she is treated with dignity, that she is treated with respect, that she gets access to senior government officials. These sorts of expressions are meaningful and substantive and speak volumes, not just to the people of Taiwan about the importance of the relationship, but also telegraph to the mainland that the United States takes its relationship with Taiwan very, very seriously. And that is important for Taiwan's peace and security, and for security in the Taiwan Strait. So we want to see a maintenance of that, and then also in Taiwan's international space. And perhaps talk a little bit about the challenge with the coronavirus and Taiwan's exclusion from international organizations like the World Health Organization and ICAO. So defense, international space, economic policy. Economic policy is the only area that we have not seen the same advance in relations as we have in the other three areas. And for those of you who track this stuff, it's very boring, I'm afraid. It's the same legacy agricultural issues that are tiny percentages of our bilateral trade relationship, but have outsized weight in the way in which the US government thinks about its trade relationship. And we're waiting to see whether or not President Tsai will, since she has been re-elected, make some effort to at least address the issue of pork, which has been a long-standing trade difficulty for us. I think also the other area I would suggest you all are going to see significant advances, and you're going to read in your newspapers for sure, is technology policy. And I know a number of you own and manage your own technology companies, engineers in this room, and so on. Technology policy obviously is a key driver in US-China relations, and the Trump administration sees Taiwan as a key partner in helping project American interests. 5G and Huawei is an excellent example. We're going to read increasingly more about pressure on Taiwan to cooperate with the United States in restricting Chinese access to critical components and critical semiconductor chips, for example. These are going to create challenges for the Tsai government because the island is going to have to make choices that not everybody on the island is going to like. Not every Taiwan company thinks that the United States is where its main interest is. Many Taiwan companies feel China is where their main interests are. This is going to create an ongoing challenge over the next 4 years for the Tsai government because domestic interests on the island are going to pull the government different ways, and she and her colleagues will have to manage that. China will be obviously an interested party on this, and we're certainly expecting continuity in policy, that the Chinese will continue to coerce Taiwan militarily around the island, in an international space to try and steal international allies, and of course economically to try and pressure and coerce the island into political arrangements that the island is unwilling to take. The coronavirus is a very interesting prism to look at in respect to China policy, because it so perfectly represents how cynical China policy is to Taiwan. The Taiwan people need access to global health organizations, and the global community need access to Taiwan because Taiwan is a front-line sovereign state in dealing with an outbreak such as the coronavirus as it relates to China. But the Chinese do not allow Taiwan participation in these organizations. It's a political issue, and it gets in the way of global public health. Fortunately, in the longer term, what's happening with this, and I say this with carefully because people are sick and people have died, But in the longer term, we've really seen Taiwan's political isolation as it relates to this issue being highlighted. Prime Minister Abe of Japan, Prime Minister Trudeau of Canada, European Parliament, the British, in the US Congress, Secretary Pompeo, on several occasions over the last several weeks, has raised Taiwan's political isolation as a major problem in dealing with public health outbreaks like this. In the longer term, that should help us elevate Taiwan's global standing, and my hope is, in time, find Taiwan a substantive, meaningful role in these organizations that respects and represents the position that Taiwan is in. The coronavirus also creates some interesting questions about stability in China, and I think that's something that we have to take seriously. Before the virus hit, Xi Jinping and CCP were already confronted with significant challenges internally, not just those brought on by the accelerated trade challenges from the United States, but domestic problems such as high levels of debt. The coronavirus is going to slow down growth further and create further challenges internally. We would hope that that doesn't spill out into problems with China's neighbors, particularly Taiwan, but there are no guarantees. So an appeal to you all, and then I'm going to stop because I know you want to get to your party and some singing and music. I feel from somebody who runs a trade organization to another trade organization, I make an appeal to you that I hope that we can cooperate closely in areas like the bilateral trade agreement, because I believe that your trade association and my trade association and others around the United States, ones that aren't necessarily focused on Taiwan but are sector specific, all have a shared interest in closer economic relationships between the US and Taiwan. But it will require us to coordinate closely together to make these big policy developments happen. And I know I'll be reaching out, as I'm sure your leadership will be, to USTBC to look at ways to cooperate more closely in pursuing those areas. Secondly, we also want to cooperate closely to ensure that Taiwan is not caught in the middle of all of this. That Taiwan has the best opportunity it possibly can to represent its own interests as a sovereign state. And that will be hard, but that, again, will require friends to work closely together, to cooperate closely together. I wish you all, your families, and each of you individually, happiness and good health in this year of the rat. God bless you all.
Thank you so much. So right now we would like to open Q&A. Anyone has a question you'd like to communicate with Mr. Rupert, please raise your hand. Go ahead. Yes, please.
China has been taking all means to isolate Taiwan. And we appreciate the United States to help, but I would say mostly in words. We want the United States to take some action, help Taiwan to return to WHO, and also not just because China tried to isolate Taiwan by sending aids to our friendly country, and so they cut the relation with Taiwan. I hope United States can take real action, not just by words, but real action to help Taiwan. Thank you.
Thank you. Your energy and spirit on this is well received. My understanding of where US policy is heading on Taiwan international space is going to be a mixture of incentives and sort of carrot and stick. I think the carrot will be to incentivize Taiwan's present allies to remain allies, and possibly even to incentivize countries to recognize Taiwan over China, to switch back to Taiwan. And so a very interesting thing happened at the end of last year. I don't know if any of you caught it. The city of Prague in the Czech Republic switched its city-to-city relationship from Beijing to Taipei. And what struck me as interesting, I was actually in Berlin at a conference right over where this, and one of the city council women from Prague spoke to us as a group, and she said he was the driver. The Czechs have lived under communists. They know what it means to live under communism. And they said what happened was the Chinese started to be heavy-handed with the city of Prague, and the older members of the city council and the older people in the city said, we recognize this behavior. We fought the communists off, and we have become free. We don't want to replace the Soviet Union with the Chinese. They made a specific connection. I don't know whether this is an isolated case with Prague, or whether perhaps it's the start of something bigger. We'll have to wait and see. But certainly, as China behaves the way it does, where there are countries who've had some experience with communism in the past, there is an opportunity to shift back. On the stick, I think the US, certainly in cooperation, particularly with Japan, they can make some cost to countries or to organizations that are punitive towards Taiwan. And I think that's going to come more and more and more.
Okay, do we have any other question? Yes, please.
Thank you, Rupert. You mentioned about the bilateral trade agreements, the importance. And since we are in the Silicon Valley, do you kindly suggest our community here can do something to, let this bilateral trade agreement between the United States and Taiwan to move, progressively forward? Thank you.
Well, certainly, I certainly recommend if you support it, you can certainly talk to your congressmen and congresswomen, your senators and your governor. You have Democratic senators, governors, and congressmen and women, mostly in California, and we have a Republican president. So I say that only as a statement of fact. So perhaps the influence that can be maybe modest. But from a business organization standpoint, your businesses all have the ability to organize through your trade associations, to coordinate, to have a bigger voice. And of course, it doesn't matter, Republican, Democrat, whatever, businesses make the country move. And if your view is a bilateral trade agreement is important, when you present that to your representatives or to Washington, the politicians will listen. So I do encourage you to speak with one voice as best you are able, and to leverage your trade associations and where your businesses have scale, your businesses to argue and articulate for more in the US-Taiwan economic relationship. It is so important. We need vision in the economic relationship. The economic ties between us are very important in bilateral relations. Thank you.
Do we have any questions from the younger generation? Someone here?
如果你要用中文问问题也可以，我知道韩会长的中文讲得非常好，他答也可以啦。有没有人要问问题的？举手。
One more time. What is a stumbling block between the trade talk between Taiwan and United States? Is that the importation of beef and pork?
Yes, for sure. And it is beef and pork, but frankly, it's not even. The United States is increasingly producing pork without the steroid lactoferrin, which is a legacy issue. The US government takes the position that Taiwan made a legal commitment to fix something. So really, the issue for them is the principle of the issue, not the action. The amount of trade is almost infinitesimal in respect to bilateral trade. It's the principle that they're hung up on. They say Taiwan made a commitment, they haven't followed through. Until they follow through, we can't make any new commitments with Taiwan. That's the position the trade negotiators are taking. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any other question? Oh, okay, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. I am the Chief of PR for junior chapters, and may you share with us your observation as being the member for the National Committee on United States and China Relations. Thank you.
On what it means to be a member?
So we saw your biography. You are one of the members for National Committee on United States and China Relations. Can you share with us your observations from being a member there?
Oh, I see. Yeah, sure. I mean, the National Committee is a collection of executives and academics and others who are bound together in the U.S. relationship with China and subsets of that, and aspects of that relationship. So people are invited to become members of that organization, and they do events. Much like your trade association, they do events and they try and facilitate debate. You asked, so I'll give you a very candid response. Regrettably, that organization was very China-focused, frankly too much China-focused. There was very little bandwidth for Taiwan. Maybe it's changing a little bit now, I hope, but overall it has a strong reputation in US-China relations. I think that's pretty much its primary focus, obviously. But maybe things have changed a little bit. There's a little bit more room to discuss Taiwan in there. Thank you.
Do we have any further questions? Oh, okay, please.
How you predict Huawei's financial chief in Canada? How is his fate? Huawei financial chief in Canada. How you predict her fate?
Yeah. Well, this is just my own personal opinion, but I think she's going to be extradited to the States, and I think she's going to go on trial for circumventing U.S. law. So I think she's in a lot of trouble. Mr. Trump has said that it's possible that she could be part of a deal. Mr. Trump's got to be careful there, because if it's a legal issue, he can't be seen to involve himself in it. So that's a little bit confusing, that part. But there's no doubt that there's a strong case to be made that she broke U.S. law. So we will see what happens.
You touched a little bit earlier about semiconductor being a strength in Taiwan. Can you share other industries and technologies that perhaps U.S. and Taiwan can have more closer collaboration in maybe what those industries may be?
Absolutely. Funnily enough, we're talking about the coronavirus. I actually think areas of public health are going to be important areas of cooperation between the US and Taiwan. Taiwan hosts a large it's in Taipei, at the end of March typically. They do a big smart cities expo in Taipei. It's very, very good. A sub-component to that is what's going on in the health industry in Taiwan. Obviously, Taiwan has a national health system. I think the people in Taiwan seem to like it. But I do believe that there's a tremendous opportunity for expanded cooperation in health. Both the development of drugs, as well as what I would characterize as health tourism. So where where the United States and Taiwan cooperate, in Taiwan as a base for people to come in and out and receive high quality healthcare. In other areas of tech, candidly, I take the position that it is better for Taiwan to be exceptional in one or two areas than to be good in 5 areas. What we as an organization talk to the Taiwan leadership about is be indispensable to the world in 2 areas, and you will have so much economic and political leverage. If you just focus on that. Obviously, there's a desire to try and be lots of different things. Semiconductor area, health, I think, is another area where we would certainly point to.
Okay, I guess, yeah, we're all good. Let's give Rupert a big applause. It's about 10 days ago, we still undecided to continue this event or not. I checked with Rupert, so of course I keep my promise. So that's how we can have our banquet tonight, and we'll all to show our appreciation. Our President Lin had a plaque for you, and this under your name, we put the Rupert President, Rupert 会长, and your topic talk about the challenge ahead, right? 挑战当前. So I think if on the program book you will have it. I will briefly read the English part. Rupert, diligent and erudite, chairman the USTBC. He specialized at National Defense Army War and highly respect President serving the nation. Let's talk about the President time. Defending Taiwan, stand, and you advise we to stand at the front line. Okay, thank you, and we'd like to have the President with 会长. Oh. Okay. Yeah. Let you to present to the school. Thank you, and I also have one announcement for you. Rupert would like to visit every table to toast to you and say thank you for your visit, for your comment. Thank you. So sit on your table, we'll get our program on board, and we would like to toast to you and the table. Thank you.
谢谢 Rupert， 还有我们的这个谢胜宽。那我们在开始今天晚会之前呢，我们先来一轮暖身的抽奖哈。但是我不知道所有的奖项是不是已经都放进去了，还有没有的还？
再念一次啊，再念一次好了。这个580930还没有领取，580930。579710 579710